Welcome back, partners. Dane Hyman here, Mr. Hyman from Cole. Thanks so much for those of you guys that clicked on that read aloud video. I greatly appreciate it. That reading, guys, I mean, it's not the easiest to read. It's also an event that's not the easiest to discuss. The Holocaust and what happened to the Jewish people in Europe was one of the worst things that's ever happened just in human history. Part of your directions, though, did say you would have 4 choice activities to do once you completed that reading. So we're on a page right now that says choose 4 from the menu below, which means you guys are going to have to pick any 4 of these choices that you are interested in and complete them on the following pages. Each choice is related to the reading in some way. For instance, choice 1 says create a detailed timeline of 5 events from the reading that occurred after World War I all the way until Hitler took full power during World War II. Okay? And include dates where you can. And I should add that here for you guys, where you can. So if you guys think that choice 1 is an activity, one of the 4 choices you want to do, what you would do, keeping in mind that you're trying to make a timeline of 5 events, is scroll down to where you see a box that says choice 1. In that box, you see 5 little boxes for the timeline. So you would create those 5 events in order. First, this happened. Second, this. Third, this. Fourth, this. Finally, this happened. And you're using the reading to come up with 5 events in order all the way from the end of World War I to when Hitler took power in Germany. And that's all you have to do for choice 1 is create that 5-step timeline. You can pick, remember, any of these activities that seem interesting to you. If choice 1 doesn't sound like something you want to do, don't do it. Pick another choice. Maybe you could come down here and maybe you think choice 4 sounds awesome. Create a list of 5 questions that you would ask someone who lived during this time period and then try to answer those questions pretending to be the person that was asked. That, to me, is one of my favorite activities to do. So I would come all the way down to the box that says choice 4. And I would start asking those questions. Think about, man, if you could go back in time and ask somebody who lived during the Holocaust a question, what are some of those questions you would ask? And then think to yourself, if you were asked this question as someone that lived during the Holocaust, what do you think their answer would be? This activity forces you to be creative, to think in terms of a historical lens. Wow, what would it have actually been like to live back then and answer these type of questions? What would I have thought if I was a Jewish person living in Germany? I like choice 4. You don't have to choose it, though. Remember, you get to choose any of the choices you want and do them in the correct choice box. When you are done with your choice activities, you're going to scroll down here and you're going to do what's called an analysis activity. So, go ahead and pause this video now while you work on your choice activities, and then restart it when you're ready for the analysis section. Only hit play when you are done with the choice activities, and I will continue with instructions for analysis. Go ahead and pause now. Awesome. You guys just got done doing the choice activities for this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed them. I love doing choice menus and giving you guys some freedom for what you guys want to do in your own education. What you're going to do now is the last activity that we're going to do during class is an analysis. We're going to use all these different tools that we've learned about so far this year in social studies at all your different campuses. Point of view, bias, intended audience, author's purpose statements. And we're going to write our own analysis or reasoning statement ourselves that includes all 4 of those things. And remember, this is part of Ms. Ramelzik's language activity, how to incorporate these things and use them in our analysis, in our reasoning statements. So, what I did for you guys is I posted the source right here so you didn't have to scroll all the way back to the Newsy LA reading. just to see that source. This includes who the authors are, what it's called, where it was published, and when it was published. 2017 means that it is, of course, a secondary source. What I did is I started a paragraph for you guys with a claim in blue, my context or sourcing in yellow, and my evidence in green. My claim in this paragraph is that Adolf Hitler did many awful things and used many forms of oppression during his time in power, but the worst was his persecution of the Jewish people in the Holocaust. So what I'm claiming right now is that the worst thing that Hitler did was persecute the Jewish people the way he did during the Holocaust. Take them from their homes, force them into camps, take away their freedoms, destroy their businesses. Those are all examples of persecution. And I'm saying that that event, the Holocaust, was the worst event of that time, maybe ever. I gave you guys my sourcing information. All this stuff in yellow came directly from the source above. And then I gave you a quote from the Newsy article. In the article it states, one night in November 1938, Nazi gangs went on a rampage. They burned Jewish synagogues, their buildings of worship. They smashed the windows of Jewish businesses, littering the streets with glass. It became known as the Night of the Broken Glass, or Kristallnacht in German. So that quote gives you a solid example of exactly what type of persecution Hitler used at the start of the Holocaust to oppress and persecute Jewish people. Now, I know your teachers at your campuses have done this with you, just like I've done with my students at Cole. Once I go through the answer and claim, and I have the sourcing, and I've put in the evidence, now comes the most important part of your paragraph. And that's that reasoning statement, that analysis section, where you have to tell me how that piece of evidence, how that quote proves that your claim is correct. How does that evidence of them destroying businesses and synagogues prove that this was the worst thing that happened, and that the Holocaust was the worst thing that happened during Hitler's time in power? Worse than World War II, worse than all the violence of the war. I'm saying that the Holocaust was the worst event, and you're going to have to convince me that that's correct. You're going to have to prove that this claim is correct. And you're going to do that on this next page by filling in each part of the analysis section. Point of view, bias, intended audience, author's purpose, and your own reasoning, your own thoughts and ideas. So we have that Newsy source. Your claim that you are arguing is that the Holocaust was the worst thing that Hitler ever did. Worse than World War II, worse than all that stuff. And you have that piece of evidence that shows at the start of Holocaust that Jewish people were taken from their homes, their businesses were burned, their freedoms were taken away, they were placed in these camps. And you're going to do all these things as analysis. So first you're going to look at point of view. What point of view is this article written from? Okay? It's a secondary source, so I know this was probably written from the point of view of a historian. Historians teach us about history. So you're going to tell me what the point of view was in this box to the right. Then you're going to move to the box that says bias. Remember what we learned yesterday. Secondary sources, just like the Newsy reading, are factual information generally used to teach us about history. So think to yourself, does this source have a bias? Does this author have other motives? Are they trying to convince you of one side or the other? Is it just facts, or are they using mostly opinions? You're going to finish this off by using intended audience and author's purpose statements. We know this is a secondary source. We know this is a historian writing it. So who do you think the Newsy authors intended to read this? Think about who's reading it right now. And then look at the author's purpose statement. What are they trying to do, the Newsy authors, by creating this source? Are they trying to convince us? Are they trying to argue a point? Or are they trying to teach us and inform us and educate us about history? You're going to have to write an author's purpose statement as well. And then the last thing you're going to do, and this is where it comes from the heart. You convince me, okay, why doing this to the Jewish people, why this type of oppression was so awful, and why it was the worst thing that Hitler ever did. And this reasoning statement, the last thing you do in your paragraphs, comes from your own words, your own thoughts, and your own ideas. It doesn't come from the source. It comes from you. You have to convince me or your teacher or whoever reads this that this claim is correct. Once you're done with that, as usual, you got your daily mastery check, which means you log into your Edge Elastic accounts, and you are going to complete the mastery check that says week 2, module 2, just like is pictured in this lesson right here. And you guys will be one step closer to completing week 2 of eSchool at DSST. Adios.